Don't let the Do Not Disturb sign fool you. What happened in room 247 will haunt your dreams and make you question every quiet hotel door you pass. What was Mr. Hayes really hiding behind the steam and shadows? And what was that thing in the shower? Dare to uncover the truth and don't disturb. But be warned, some doors should never be opened. My name is Andrea, and I've worked as a housekeeper at the Pinewood Hotel for 8 years. I've seen my share of odd things. Forgotten passports, suitcases filled with nothing but junk mail, even a live iguana once. But room 247, that's a memory that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. It started about 3 weeks ago. The guest, Mr. Leonard Hayes, checked in late on a Sunday evening. He was a business traveler, middle-aged, well-dressed, polite. He prepaid for a month's stay and didn't seem unusual at all. The kind of guest you barely notice. But the very next day, the Do Not Disturb sign appeared on his door, and it stayed there for 16 days. Now, it's not unheard of for guests to keep the sign up for a few days, especially if they're the type who don't like housekeeping fussing around. But 16 days, that was odd. Hotel policy says we're supposed to respect the sign unless there's an emergency. But we're also supposed to keep an eye out for anything unusual. And trust me, this was unusual. Every day as I passed his door, I heard the shower running. Not just for a few minutes, hours. By the time I finished my shift, it was still going. I reported it to my supervisor, Maria, and she told me not to worry. Maybe he's just one of those eco-nuts who likes white noise, she said with a shrug. But it wasn't just the shower. There was something else. When I pressed my ear to the door, I know I shouldn't have, but curiosity got the better of me. I could hear this faint sound beneath the water. It was chewing. Wet, sloppy chewing, like someone gnawing on a tough piece of meat. I mentioned it to maintenance, hoping they'd check it out, but they brushed it off, saying the water bill hadn't spiked, and there were no drainage issues. If he wants to waste his own time and money, let him, they said. On the 16th day, the sign disappeared. For the first time, there was nothing hanging on the doorknob. Instead, there was a piece of paper taped to the door. On one side it said, "Ready for cleaning." On the other, written in thick red marker, "Please enter," and close the door behind you. That's when the dread hit me. Something about the note felt wrong. But I convinced myself I was overthinking it. Maybe he'd finally left and was letting us clean the room. I've been in hundreds of hotel rooms. What could really surprise me? When I unlocked the door and stepped inside, the first thing that hit me was the smell. It wasn't just musty, it was rotten, like something sour and spoiled had been left to fester. The air was thick with humidity, and my shoes squelched on the wet carpet. The shower was still running, steam pouring out from under the bathroom door. But Mr. Hayes wasn't in sight. I started with the bed. The sheets were rumpled but empty, though there were these dark, greasy stains smeared across the fabric. On the nightstand, there was a stack of unopened meal delivery bags, all neatly piled but untouched. The mini fridge was open, and every single item had been pulled out and left on the floor. None of it looked eaten. The sound of the shower drew me to the bathroom. My hands were shaking as I pushed the door open. The steam billowed out, so thick I could barely see, but I could still make out the silhouette of a man standing in the shower. His back was to me, and he was moving, kind of jerking his head back and forth. "Mr. Hayes." I called out. My voice cracked, but he didn't respond. I stepped closer. The shower curtain was half open, and as I approached, I saw his hands pressed flat against the tiles. His nails were caked with something dark, and his skin looked wrong. It wasn't just wet from the water. It was shiny and stretched tight, almost like plastic. When I got close enough to see his face, I froze. His mouth was hanging open, and inside, there was no tongue. Just this black, gaping hole, like his throat had been hollowed out. And his eyes, they were wide open, but they weren't looking at anything. They were glassy, vacant, dead. I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the wet floor. That's when I noticed what was in the shower drain. Hair, clumps of it, and something else. Pieces of skin, like he'd been peeling himself. I turned and ran out of the room, slamming the door behind me. The police came that afternoon. They found no sign of Leonard Hayes ever leaving the room. His belongings were still there, his wallet, his phone, even his suitcase. But the man himself, he was gone. The only explanation they could give me was that he'd been dead for days, maybe even weeks. And the thing I saw in the shower, they didn't find it. I've since left the Pinewood Hotel. I couldn't keep working there, not after that. But every now and then, I think about room 247, about the sound of chewing, about the note on the door. And I wonder, if I hadn't left when I did, would I have ended up like him? Just another shadow, standing in the steam.